Hi guys, today with us we have Coach Ashley Kovacs from Ohio State. Coach Kovacs is going to talk to us about her experience as a high school athlete, as a college athlete. She coached athletes at all levels, including world champion in shot put Joe Kovacs. She's going to talk to us about that experience and what she's looking for in athletes when she's recruiting, what she's looking for in her current athletes, and the philosophy of her training. So guys, stick around. Ashley Kovacs, one of the best coaches out there. Check it out. All right, Ashley Kovacs, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time. How's everything?
Good. How are you doing, Martin?
Good. It's a little raining in Charlottesville now. It was 85 yesterday, but now it's 53. So
wow, that's quite a turnaround.
Yeah. How's everything in Ohio?
Good. The weather's been kind of shaky. Hasn't gotten up to 85 for us, but can't complain too much.
Yeah. Well, we can skip all the way because we talked a little bit in the intro before we got on. Skip all the recruiting stuff because obviously now we can recruit a little bit less on the field. But in terms of recruiting, obviously you still have to talk to juniors and seniors. What is your advice for those people in those situations? How do they reach out to you? How do they prove that they're worthy of Ohio State to be recruited if they haven't thrown the mark this year, right?
Yeah, it's really a tough situation, and I really feel for the juniors and seniors that lost their season. You know, it's pretty tough, especially for the juniors. It's such an important year for you to get your marks out there, and also just a time for coaches to see you. Personally, like in the past, I haven't done a ton of recruiting with underclassmen just because I think you change a lot going into your junior year, especially. You keep your eye on some of the younger ones, the freshmen and the sophomores, but the junior year is a really big year for me personally because I like to see how much they've changed from sophomore to junior season. So I don't think that this time where they're not gonna be able to do anything, I don't think it's helping that we don't get to see their marks, but I think that there are things they can do to make it up. Like, for example, if they train really well right now and have a really good indoor season their senior year, I think that there's going to be a lot of people signing later than normal just because of the setback. So I think that sometimes people aren't really ready indoor. And I think that the people that, especially the juniors that thought that they were going to throw big this year, need to take the indoor season next year pretty seriously to make sure that they're seen for what they're able to do. And I think that the coaches in the collegiate system are going to be looking for that.
Yeah. In terms of your scouting of talent, right? You are obviously incredible coach. You have experience from high school, college, professional athletes. You coached world champions all the way down, right? So your experience is quite impressive. What is that you're looking for when it comes to athletes, or do you have parameters? Do you have distances? How do you look for talent?
Well, I think that I've had a lot of athletes at Ohio State that barely squeezed in on our walk-on standards that we have posted on our website. I have a lot of leeway with my head coach to use my jurisdiction when it comes to, deciding who we bring in. There have been people that we've brought in that maybe didn't have the best marks and hadn't thrown the farthest, but, they had a lot of potential. For example, like Jacey Moravsky, who was the first 20-meter shot putter I had. Yeah. And I posted that video from your meet that we love. Yeah, but he threw 57 feet in high school.
Okay.
And I didn't recruit him. The coach before me was here and recruited him, and they barely let him walk on, and he ended up throwing 20 meters for us. Yeah. Nick Demeline, I had signed him at Western Kentucky when he threw 58 feet. In his senior year, he threw 68.10. So, and he was number 1 in the country. And then he threw 20 meters for us here. Adelaide Aquila, she threw 43 feet officially in high school. I think she had a dual meet where she might have thrown 44, 45 once. And she's thrown 58 feet for us as a sophomore. So I think that there are a lot of things that go into what makes a collegiate thrower great besides the marks that they threw in high school. But at the same time, those people that I just mentioned, we're not going to fund somebody that is barely meeting the walk-on standard the same way we would somebody that's been top 5 in the country since they were a sophomore. And so I think that's just important to understand. And I think people get caught up with associating the scholarship offer with an identified worth to the coach in the program. And I think that you have to just look at it as like your current value, your current, market value. Your market value is somebody that's top 5 is going to be a lot higher than somebody that's from 40 feet. You know, I could get 100 kids every single year that throw 40 feet. You know, a 50-footer, a 52-foot high school kid, like those marks are a little bit more sacred, you know, so you're going to pay a little bit more for them. It's really like anything else, you know, something that's attainable and easy to come by isn't as valuable in the sense of the money that you're going to spend to get it. So, you know, like the one thing that I've told recruits is like, what can you do to differentiate yourself if you don't have the mark? You know, what can you bring to the table? Because there are a lot of intangibles that I think have great value. And a lot of those things have to do with personality, work ethic, what type of teammate I think you're going to be, what type of citizen you're going to be, those types of things, because those are very important to us at Ohio State, and they're very important to me because I care a lot about the culture of our group.
That's why you do have such an amazing culture in Ohio State, which I hate to say it, right? Like, oh no, UVA is the best. There's a lot of good schools there, obviously, like yourself, and you're doing that job in kind of funneling, not just physical talent, but also, like you said, work ethic, what kind of citizen you are, right? So it's not, even if you're not throwing 70 feet, you know, or as a guy, or 50 feet as a girl, there is a lot of things that you can bring to the table, is what you're saying. And if you're getting to know the athlete in your process, you can then say, okay, you know, we have a spot for you, or, you know, you might not be a fit, it might be hard for you, right? So it's not just the distance, right?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely not just the distance, but I will say that, you know, a lot of times people are asking like about scholarship money. And I do think when you're taking an athlete to your head coach and asking your boss to invest in someone, it's really difficult for me to go into my boss and ask for scholarship money for somebody that's thrown 45 feet. That's a good solid throw. But at the same time, you are almost 10 feet off of being able to help at our conference level.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, that's just how good this conference has became. I mean, for example, 9 of the top 16 people in the country indoor were from the Big Ten. Okay. So it's that's a lot of, it's a big commitment to ask for funding for somebody, even a 50-footer. You know, a 50-footer, you're going to have to throw 4 feet farther to score points in our conference. So you're really good, but you're not going to be able to do what we need somebody that's on scholarship to do, probably for at least a year or two.
Yeah. If I was an athlete, I would look at it this way. Now, you know, going back in, you know, in hindsight, I would want to be in that situation. Obviously, if you can't afford it, or you know, a financial situation is such that you really cannot afford to get a student loan, or some other ways to make it anyways, right? I want to be with the best and compete with the best, right? That's how you get better. Is there a chance, do you guys reward, let's say somebody comes in 40 feet and then, you know, they as a female, they go 52, you know, 55. Is there an opportunity to raise the scholarship over the years?
So Jacey came in as a walk-on, and he left on a full ride. Nick Demeline wasn't on a full ride when he came. He left on a full ride. Adelaide Aquila was a walk-on, and she's earned money, and she's earned more money even this year from what she's done. She earned more money after her freshman year. She was a national qualifier, scored first at the Big Ten, and now after this year, she's going to be rewarded again. And I think that I know for sure that not every head coach is willing to do that. And our head coach is willing to do that and does do that. And so that makes me feel really good when I'm talking to a recruit and I look at them and I say, listen, I'm not, like, for example, if I was recruiting a kid this past year and Adelaide went from throwing 53, 54 feet to throwing 58 feet and was top 3 in the NCAA, I'm not going to pay a 45, 46, 47-foot shot putter. I'm going to pay my 58-foot shot putter first. And that's what we're committed to doing that. And, you know, I think that that's just the right thing to do. I think that you deserve to be rewarded for what you've done. And if you've worked really hard and if you're proving that you can be competitive at a higher level than you were when you came in, like, that's, to me, that's worth it, you know, and our head coach agrees with that. So that is something that we do. And you know how it is, you know, and this is the other thing. It's hard for, I think, recruits and parents to understand. Like, sometimes you might want to make a bump for a kid and there's no funding. Not every single class is going to graduate the exact same scholarship money. So, for example, you have 12 scholarships on the men's side. What if you only graduate one person and it was a distance runner and you got another distance runner recruit, and then you have a thrower that just, you know, became an All-American out of nowhere? It's like, that person might have to wait a year to get the money that we want to give them. Doesn't mean we don't want to give that to them, but we literally don't have it at that point, you know? So I think that's another important thing just for athletes and parents to be aware of, because I think it's a hard thing to kind of conceptualize and understand. Like, we are allotted a certain amount of scholarship, and we can't spend what we don't have. And that's just the way it goes, you know, for everybody.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's very important for parents to know that, to athletes to know that, high school coaches to know that, is if you are getting better at your school, there will be a reward, obviously, if it's there. And in your experience, you had that quite a bit. So I think that's a really strong motivator for athletes to come in and work even harder. And at UVA, we had the same situation like yourself. We have athletes coming on as a walk-on and ending up on the full rides because they know they can get a scholarship when they do well. So that's a great to see here. And you were definitely right. Not every school does it. Sometimes you cannot do it because there's only 12 on a guy's side, 12.5, and 18 on women. But going in 4 years, and you're getting better like your guys are and girls, there will be, you know, some opportunity for that. So that's very important to know. Also, do you take transfers at Ohio State? That's
Definitely.
One of the major
So
questions.
yeah, right now we have 4 girls who have thrown over 56 feet in the shot. So 4 girls over 17-10. So it's like Lindsay Baker's thrown 17-11. Divine Oladipo, she came over from UConn. She's from Great Britain originally. She's thrown 17-40, and then Adelaide's thrown 17-82, and Sade's thrown 17-88. So it's pretty fun environment with that. I'm really excited for them all to be together in training, because Lindsay and Divine transferred in. Lindsay came from Ashland. They transferred in at semester. So, you know, I'm really we didn't get a whole lot of time for everybody to train together with the whole pandemic. But, you know, and that's another thing that goes back to the funding situation. It's like, at this point with what I have, even a 50-foot high school thrower, like, I'd love to have a 50-footer, but we don't have the funding. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's such a thing as oversaturation. Like, what would I do with a 50-foot shot putter? You know, like, next year I have Linnea Browder coming in. She threw 48 feet as a sophomore from Ohio. And, you know, she's one of the best in the country out of high school. And she's got a 10-foot gap between her, you know, and Adelaide.
The best girl.
And that's crazy to think about, because Linnea is a very, very talented high school thrower, you know? But yeah, so I think that all those things have to do with what you were talking about with, you know, with the value of what a team can give you. And it's like, we've won the Big Ten, I think 5 or 6 times since I've been at Ohio State in 6 years. And we're trying to fund our team so we can win championships. It's like, a 50-footer to me at this point is a different value to somebody that doesn't have anybody that's thrown over 50 feet. You know what I'm saying? So It's all relative.
Yeah. And how exciting is that? You know this because you've been on a couple of teams. You've been on an incredible team in Kentucky when you were a student. Obviously, in high school, you train different groups. How valuable do you think this atmosphere that they have, camaraderie between them, adds to their performance?
Well, I think it's just, you know, like, Adelaide had thrown, she PR'd at outdoor NCAAs her freshman year. She threw like 1659 or something, was 12. And she was like you know, like, not to be like, you know, she was kind of the runt of the litter. She was like the baby, kind of like, okay, what are you going to do? And, you know, being behind Sade is not easy. You know, she's been so dominant, and she has such a presence in the NCAA and at Ohio State. And, you know, I really challenged Adelaide indoor and all through the fall. Sade was going to Worlds, so she wasn't there the same way she had been. And I really challenged Adelaide to kind of step up and, like, set the tone. And, you know, I really I had a very young team, and Adelaide, like, really worked hard all summer and all fall. And, like, Joe and I, we could just see it. Like, you could just see it coming. Yeah. And before Christmas, I was just like, I told Joe, I was like, I seriously thought she was I knew she was in like 1750 shape. And I was just like, how did this happen this quickly? You know, and I told my boss, I told Coach Karen, I was like, Adelaide is seriously going to be really good. Yeah. And then she was, you know, and I think that made everybody, because like when after Christmas, when I had Lindsay and Divine come in,
Mm-hmm.
everyone had still thrown a meter farther than Adelaide had. So they're not, none of them are, Adelaide's competing. Lindsay Baker was competing, but she'd just gotten to Ohio State. And then Sade and Divine weren't competing. So Sade and Divine were just like looking at Adelaide like, she's throwing really far. Everybody was like, Adelaide's throwing really far. And so I think that made everybody kind of want to pick up the pace and the intensity a little bit. And I mean, I really believe that if we would have had an outdoor season, I think something very special would have gone on. I was really anticipating that because I think everyone was in pretty good shape, and they all wanted to beat each other in as a polite a way as you can.
Yeah.
But I think that's important. I want them to all want to be the best. They have to be, because the thing that I'd say to Adelaide, it's like, if you're scared of Sade, which maybe you should be, how are you going to compete in the Big Ten? You know what I'm saying? Like if you're scared of Sade, or you're intimidated by Sade, or you think you're less than her, maybe that's okay, that's fine. But you better toughen up a little bit if you're going to survive in this conference, And I think she understood that. And I think Sade really helped her kind of grow into herself. So it's been really exciting. And I think it's going to be even more exciting when we have more time together, hopefully in the future.
I love that. And that's so true, that you are getting better together. Everybody's getting better together. And every day you have these teammates that you cannot sleep on, right? Like you can't have a bad day. And they don't want you either, right? They want to push you forward. They're cheering for you. And I don't know if there's a school right now, and I shouldn't be talking about this because we are not one of those schools either, that have 4 girls over 55 or 54.
We're over
That's
70,
really unique.
56.
Yeah. That's such a unique situation, and I know the girls, if they're not excited now, they will be in years to come when they look back. Like that doesn't happen often. That rarely happens. All 4 of them I love, and having a 5th girl coming in, which is great, 48. That's amazing, and they're still like, oh well, there's 4 ahead of you. That's really exciting. So what is in that note, how's your day like in terms of training? How do you all train together at the same time? Do you separate groups? How does it work? What's a normal day in Ohio State in terms of
our fall is very different than obviously when we're in season. In the fall, we have 2 separate groups. When we're in our time where we can throw in our 20 hours to throw, but we all lift together. And I think that that's really important. I take a lot of time in deciding when we get into the weight room, who's lifting with who. We have I call them our pods, or our groups of 3s, and then we have pairs, our doubles. And we do a lot of stuff in the fall where we do, I don't want to say games, but challenges or whatever. And there'll be a team situation when we're doing stuff like that. And I really try to organize those groups strategically, so it's if I had a pod, it'd be somebody that was like a Sade or an Adelaide, a conference champion. And then a middle grade person that it was a sophomore or a junior that had done well, but wasn't, top tier yet. And then a freshman, and trying to get them to all integrate and just have the older people teach the younger people the expectation. And I think that when I first got to Ohio State, I had to do a lot of commanding of the things that I wanted and the expectation. And it was every little detail of everything, how you put the plates on, which way the plates were facing when you put them on the bar, the clips, just the most tedious little stupid things. But now it's I don't have to say any of that because the older ones tell them. And it's nice for me because there are times where I can literally sit back and observe and just let the room run itself from a culture standpoint. And that's super important to me, but you have to teach them that first, I was really, Sade was my first recruit here. Okay. And I don't want to say I was hard on her. She probably thinks I was hard on her, but I was pretty particular about every little thing that I wanted done. I love that. But now she knows exactly what I want. Adelaide knows exactly what I want. So when I get a transfer, when I get a freshman, there's just little things that I don't even have to say that I see them saying to them to get them in line with the way we do things here. And that's really nice for me. And I think that's how you keep the culture going and you keep the group, moving along.
I love what you just said. One of my I try to read as much as I can. Obviously, we don't have as much time as we were when we were students now, recruiting and doing all the paperwork. But one of my favorite coaches to read about was John Wooden. He was a UCLA coach, right? Unbelievable era he had at the UCLA basketball. His biggest thing that would start the season, he would teach their players how to put socks on. And the players like, what, we're NCAA champions, like, and I'm the best high school kid, like, what, put the sock on? And he goes, well, if you don't put the socks on, well, you're going to get a blister. If you get a blister, you can't train. If you can't train, you can't play. We lose a game, right? Like, we were losing. So the thing that you said about putting the weights on, how do you put them on? That is so profound. I want you guys to pay attention to this, Coach Kovacs. She pays attention to details, and that's so important, right? Building culture, starting from the small things to the big things. That's exceptional. I think all of us should do that. Really pay attention to details, because, like you said, those little things, they add up. They add up, and then
I think it deals a lot with that, like the attitude too. Like, and for me, the weight room in the fall is so important with just teaching them how to be reverent about practice. Like the way you approach a lift, approach the bar, approach the platform should mirror the way that you approach the ring. And the mentality and like the mental focus to attack a lift needs to be the same as the way you attack a competition throw, because you have to practice that mindset and you have to practice that intensity, and you have to practice teaching yourself to demand something at the drop of a hat, and so like we have fun, and like we really do like have a good time a lot of the time, but I won't put up with sloppy anything, because I just feel like it seeps into everything they do. When anything's sloppy, I think it's just like it just permeates, and I don't want anybody to think that that's acceptable, because I don't think you can get it done like that. Some people are really talented, and I think you can get away with some stuff, but at the end of the day, the rubber's always going to meet the road, and it's going to boil down to who's the most prepared and confident. And I think that everything you do is an opportunity to, you put some hay in the barn, put money in the bank towards your preparedness. And I think a ton of that boils down to mentality and intention.
Yeah. There's no doubt, and I have no doubt that 1 centimeter at the World Championships was a product of those meticulous little things that added up, right? And I really I get excited when I hear coaches, when I see athletes who are so diligent. It was Stephanie Brown. What's her Brown, right? She was a discus thrower from US, 2008 Olympics. She was Olympic champion, right? I remember her throwing, and between the throws at Olympics, she would sit down and then write down in her diary, right, in her training program, like, this is Olympics. No, she's still writing down what she learned in that throw, and she has 4 or 5 more throws to go. That makes the decision who's a champion. That little centimeter or foot, whatever, makes a difference. That's incredible. How then do you make workouts does everybody do the same thing? Do you change workouts for different people? How does the programming work at Ohio State?
So for me, it really depends on like when people are redshirting or sitting out for a season, they have a completely different protocol. Obviously the javelin throwers, the shot disc, hammer, weight people do similar things, but I structure the rep schemes a little bit differently depending on, how long I think your season's going to go. Like Sade had different reps when we were trying to get Sade to win the weight and the shot indoor. From the very beginning, it wasn't a question like, oh, if you make nationals, like we knew you were gonna make nationals, we knew you were gonna go to NCs, and we were trying to win NCs. So her setup looked a little bit differently than the people that we knew were probably gonna end their indoor season at the Big Ten championship. They do similar things. I think that for me, sometimes there are particular lifts that I think athletes respond better to, like a ballistic lift, for example. Like maybe I'll have somebody jerk and maybe I'd have somebody else snatch or somebody else clean, depending on what I thought they responded to best later in the season towards their peak. But for the base and for like the hypertrophy block and stuff, it's how it is. I mean, it's general to specific. So when we're in more of a general state, everybody's doing more similar things. When we're doing like our conditioning stuff in the fall and our general prep in the fall, even the javelin throwers are working together, and I think that's really important. Obviously they're doing different, like it's different weights, but the intensity should all be the same. And I like having the group together when they lift, because for me, we do everything is so individualized on the field with the throwing, that I think sometimes it's nice for them to be doing the same thing, to be looking over. It's like you see somebody struggling, you're like, oh, well, I'm not struggling as hard as they am. Maybe I need to go a little bit harder, you know. And I think it's nice for them to be able to gauge each other in that way. You know, I really care a lot about the weight room. I think it's super, super important. I think that, you know, it's, to me, one of the most important things. It really is. And I don't think, you know, every coach doesn't agree with that. But I think it teaches them a lot about, you know, the way that they need to be and the way they need to behave and things like that. So we do take that pretty seriously. And I like having them all together, even when they're not doing the same thing, we're all in the same room together at the same time.
How long is the throwing session? How long is the weight room session? So in terms of time, or is there?
Well, in the, you know, in the fall, it's different. We spend a lot more of our time in the weight room, especially when we're in our 8 hours and stuff, than we do throwing. We're in our 20 hours. Like in the fall, they'll do general prep stuff for probably 6 weeks, up to 6 weeks, which is, you know, for us, like I take that first 6 weeks really seriously, because to me, it's not only like getting them in shape, it's also preparing their bodies, muscles, minds for what's coming in the weight room. So for the first 6 weeks, we don't touch a barbell at all. If anything we do with the barbell, it's teaching like a progression with the Olympics. But we do, like, all the general prep stuff we do is small muscle stuff. So it's dumbbells, kettlebells, battle ropes, tires, whatever. Like, we do all of that stuff in the beginning to strengthen the areas that we need to really protect, like our shoulders, elbows, ankles, knees, all those things we know, lower backs that are important for throwers. And for me, it's also a way to get everybody on the same playing field. And you know how it is, Martin, like, you know, you get a high school kid, and even if you get a strong high school kid, it's like they have strong, big muscles. So they have a big bench and they have a big squat and they might have a big deadlift or a clean. But a lot of high school coaches were not paying attention to like the VMOs, the ankles, the shoulders, the mobility. And what happens is when your big muscles are too strong and your little muscles are too weak, I mean, we all know what happens. You break, you have injuries. So for me, those first 6 weeks, it's about balancing the big muscles and the small muscles, increasing your mobility, flexibility, range of motion, all that type of stuff, and just making sure that I'm evaluating you to see where are the holes. What could potentially cause me a problem when we get into the weight room, we're pushing heavy weight.
What's the weakest link, right? You want to make those weakest links strong so they don't break, right? That's fantastic to hear that you are building that first 6 weeks for the next 8 months. So you're making sure whatever you can do to avoid injuries that can be avoided, right?
Totally.
In terms of academics, this is one of the biggest concerns for most athletes is how I'm going to balance both, right? Can I balance? Do I have help? Ohio State, will I have advisors? Will I have a tutoring? How that works for your student athletes?
I've told like every parent that's come through Ohio State this. If you fall through the cracks at Ohio State, you tried. Like you're trying to do that, because the thing is, these and the kids, like, I think that they act like they don't like this. They're so hawked by everybody. You know, it's like you know how it is. We all have staff meetings, and our staff meetings on Monday, and the kids know, like, Monday at 10 o'clock, coach is in a meeting. If we get a text during that, like, there's going to be an issue. The thing is, it's like we have our academic advisor in there, we have our trainers in there, we have every single person from our support staff in these meetings, and we're all sitting there getting on the same page about these kids. And so, you know, the academic advisor comes in and she has all the grades and all the tutors and all of this. And so it's like, we just go through the list, and this is the head coach going through the list for every single person. You know, we have tutors, we have an academic advisor, you'll have an on-campus advisor, we have study tables, we have tutors, the whole thing, everything you can possibly have, right? You know, we have it. Most of the big schools, you know, Power 5 schools will have those things. A lot of schools have those things. You know, even when I was at Western Kentucky, a mid-major school, like, we had those things. But the reason I say if you fall through the cracks, you tried, is because it's not going to be a thing where we see you slipping and we don't try to save you, or we see you slipping and we don't provide support, or we see you slipping and we don't we're all trying to help, you know? And so Ohio State is a very strong academic institution. I know Virginia is for sure too.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are always a top 20 public institution. We've been top 20 most every single year. I think every single year since I've been at Ohio State. But you know, you're the thing about good public schools, you're in a mix with the best kids from all over the place. So like Ohio State, I think that 92% of the student body was top 10% of their class, right? So you're in classes with these students that are so high level. And it's the same thing you're talking about with the training environment. The bottom level just comes up. And so like you might have been really good at your school, or maybe you weren't that good at your school, but like now you're with the best of the best and you have to figure it out. You know, so like this is not the place to come if you aren't interested in like pursuing, you know, an academic career that you're going to have to work for. It's just not the place. Like it's not the place to come and think you're not going to have to try hard.
Yeah, and that's one very good point to keep in mind, guys. If you are recruited by Ohio State and Coach Kovacs is going to look at your the GPAs, they're going to look at your schedules, they're going to look at what classes you're taking, your SAT, and if they're still talking to you, that means you have a good sense that they're going to be successful at your school, right? You're not going to get somebody who you believe that's going to struggle so much that all these helps that you have for them is not going to be enough, right? So if you're recruiting them, that means they have the minimum to succeed, right?
Right.
The minimum is a little higher than usual, but yeah.
Right. And you know, there have been students that we've brought in that, you know, are on the line, whether, you know, kind of at a point where it's like, you know, we know they're going to have to really work to make it work. And if I don't feel like you're going to do that and take that seriously, because like, for example, I have two guys in particular that I can think of right off the top of my head that we had to really go to the well to get them into school. And, you know, the one guy in particular, like it's not ever easy for him every semester, but he works his butt off. And every time that it's a big difference for me when the academic advisor comes in the room and says, you know, this guy's struggling, but he's working his butt off. He goes to his tutors every week. He meets with his professors. And then another kid that maybe was a better student to begin with, oh, they're just not showing up. They're not. That is a very different vibe to me. And like, we'll stick with you. If you're struggling, you have a C, you have a D, but you're working as hard as you can and we believe it, we're going to stick by you. If you're not going to class, you're not doing your part, like that's where, you know, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. Like that's very hard for us to wrap our heads around, and we don't do real well with that. You know, to me, it's like not showing up to practice on time or forgetting your throwing shoes, or it's like, that's again, like we talked about sloppy behavior stuff. That is that's not how we do it, you know, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Martin, because it's frustrating.
Definitely. The point that you're making, and like you said, these good academic schools, big schools, will have these resources to help you, and you really have to try not to succeed. Like John Newell, I talked to John Newell the other day. He's like, yeah, if you really have to be trying, harder not to succeed than to succeed, with all the tutors, academic advisors, mentors that you have, right?
Right.
So it's really, there's such a net around you that you follow the steps, right? And then you'll be fine. So that's great to hear. How did you get into throwing in the first place? Where does that begin? You know, where does your story begin?
Yeah, I'm like, got to take this back a little bit. So like I played, you know, like in 7th grade where I'm from, you could start doing sports for your school. So I played basketball. All my friends played basketball. I loved it. After basketball, it's like, all right, well, what are we going to do? And everyone's like, all right, let's just do track. So I started, you know, we did track. And it's like, you know, they line everybody up and tell you where to go, to what event to try. So I was sprinting, and I liked that because all my friends were there. And then the throwing field was across the street, and then they wanted me to go over there. And I didn't really know anything about it at all. Like, but I should have probably known more about it because Judd Logan is from my hometown. He went to my high school, and I was in the same class as his son. So like I knew Judd was an Olympian, and I knew he was an Olympian in the hammer, but like I literally had no idea what the hammer was. I remember asking my parents, like, what's the hammer? And, you know, they like tried to tell me, and I couldn't understand it. And of course you couldn't YouTube back then, like you just didn't. But yeah, I went across the street and I threw, and I like threw the shot, and I remember the first time I did it, and the coach came up and he was just like, he took the ball and he's like, you must have like a 6-pound shot, and we threw an 8-pound shot when I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, throw this one. And I threw that one just as far. And he was like, he told me, he's like, I don't know, like, he's like, that would like win the conference, what you're throwing right now. And I had no idea what was going on.
What does conference mean?
It was like 30 feet, I had no idea what was going on. But we started doing meets, and like I would win the shot, and then I was terrible at the disc. I threw the disc like 50 feet. And so I went to a meet, and a guy came up to me and he was like, and at that point I'd thrown the shot, I think in 7th grade, like 35 feet or something. And he was like, did you just throw the shot 35 feet? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you threw the disc like 50, 60 feet or something like that. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, you're throwing it wrong. And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. He's like, you should throw the disc at 100 feet. And I just remember being like, I told him, I was like, there's no way I could throw the disc at 100 feet. I looked at him, and I thought he was crazy. And so he showed me those drills where you like throw it up and you bowl it, because I was throwing it like out of the back of my hand.
Oh,
so he showed me how to place the disc. I was going like this.
Yeah.
And so the next meet, like I went and I did the drills on the side, and I threw it up, and I threw 107 feet. And I just remember being like, I was so like blown away, that like I was doing it wrong. Right? And then you learned how to do it better. And I feel like that to me just like, then I like loved it. I thought it was like so fun to try to see, well, what if I do this better? What if I do that better? What if I get a little stronger? And so by the time I was in high school, I wanted to throw 50 feet in high school. Like my goal was to break the state record. I had the state record in Ohio for 7 years. I ended up throwing the disc like in the 160s. And I loved it. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun to just see how much better I could get. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I mean, even by the time I was getting recruited, some of the coaches that are still in the game that recruited me, like Coach Blue recruited me when he was at North Carolina, and obviously Doug, and then Coach Sargent at South Carolina. And, they asked me like, what do you want to do? What do you want to major in? And what do you want to be? And I told them all I wanted to coach. I knew I wanted to coach from the time I was, pretty young. Like I really enjoyed it, and I kind of figured that was what I was going to do. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started in it.
Yeah, that's like so exciting to hear. And obviously that's why you have continuous passion to this sport, because you don't fake this. You really love this sport. This is part of you since the beginning, right? Of your high school career, right? So the early age, you really fell in love with it. That's so great to see. Is that something that you're looking for in the athletes too? Like, when you're recruiting, do you see how they are around the ring? Are they excited about their throwing? Or
I think that's so important, and like Joe has to tell me all the time, like, I think it's very important to me that they like it. And when they don't really like it, I don't get it. And like, but it's not really like fair, like Joe like will always say, he's like, you're not going to find a girl, especially a girl, that probably likes it the way that you did. Like we joke all the time, like that I like it more than he does. And maybe I do, like, and I don't know. I mean, I probably do. I'm not, he's like, I couldn't do what you do, and, but at the same time, it's like, Sade is a good example. Sade didn't love track. She loved basketball. She's very into her academics. Like, she's a great student, very intelligent, wants to be a doctor, the whole thing. And like that, the track thing wasn't her passion. And I think that over the years, she's learned to like love it, and she likes it a lot more than she did in the first place. I think Sade loves to compete, but Sade doesn't like sit there and like think about how much I love the shot put. She doesn't do that. She likes it when she does it, but it's not something that like is gonna, keep her up at night for, 3 weeks in a row. But that's okay, and and obviously she's better than I ever was, and she's made she had a great career for herself so far. And, so everybody doesn't have to do it the way I did it. I think you look for people like you because you understand it. I like it when they like it, like I like Nick Demeline was a good example. Like we had a really good vibe. We got along really well. He's intense, you know, he wanted it. He was competitive. He was
Yeah.
hard-headed, and
Yeah.
like, I got him, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I understand Sade too in a different way. Sade is such an elite competitor that I
Hmm.
think we vibe on that level. But, you know, I do want them to like it. You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
want them to care about it because you're doing it for so many hours of the day.
Yes.
If you don't like what you're doing, like, what are you doing? You know,
Yes. Yeah.
if you don't like coming to practice,
Yeah.
you shouldn't come to practice.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't be doing this. You know, so I think if you don't really care about it, and I don't know how you feel about this, Martin, but like
Yeah.
for me with a high school kid, if you're not sure if you like it that much, you're gonna have a really hard time doing it at this level because the
Mhm.
demand is so high.
Yep.
And this is my job to make sure that these guys are performing
Mm.
appropriately.
Mm.
And so, like, if you're not into it and I'm pressing on you, like, hey, we got to get going,
Yeah.
you're not going to like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that,
That's
Martin?
exactly what I'm looking for as well. And I love that you can see the difference, and you understand this, right? Not everybody's going to be as excited. Not everybody's going to have that showing their enthusiasm like you do, like Joe does, right? Like Adam Nelson did, right?
Right.
There's some people who just don't express themselves, but you can see that they're like it, right? They don't, they shout. I have athletes that don't speak much, but I know when they do something that in a weight room or at the track, you can see that their demeanor changes. Like, okay, that's perfect, right? I want you to, regardless of how you express it, I want you to enjoy it because you're spending so much time. I had a conversation with one of my athletes long time ago. One of my first athletes, like I would see him staring at the wall sometimes in the weight room, right? He was just there. I'm like, what is going on? Right? I want you to be happy. I want
Right.
everybody to be happy. It doesn't have to be Pobo happy, right?
Right.
But it has to be that you are, you having a joy coming to this because you cannot be the best that you are in something that you don't enjoy, right? So you're not going to
Right.
put your 100%, your soul, your effort. You're not going to go at night in bed and think about what could I have done better, right? So it's just a waste of your time, let
Right.
alone our time, right? Like you are wasting your talent or not, go
Right.
somewhere that you like because you're going to be the best at it if you really enjoy it. So that's definitely one of the biggest things that I'm looking for. Like, do you like this throwing thing, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that culture has a lot to do with that too. Like, you know, it's just funny now that like I have, you know, 4 girls that are at like a high level. Like Lindsay Baker loves to throw, you know, and I think she thinks about it all the time. Like if Lindsay Baker had, you know, a few hours to kill and it was a nice day out, like she'd go outside and throw. You know, she likes it that much. She just do it for leisure. Like she likes it a lot. Adelaide is, to me, she really enjoys the process, I think. Like Adelaide is a good trainer. So like she comes to practice, she has her coffee, she does her little routine. She enjoys training, I think. You know, that she likes to lift. Sade loves competing. You know, that is like her big deal. She'll compete anytime, anywhere, any place with anybody. And like that's what gets her excited. So she knows I have to practice and do well at practice to be able to compete the way I want to compete. You know, like there was a point with her where we talked a lot about like it was like she could create so much power in the weight but her technique is like, I would tell her, Sade, like you create so much horsepower and your technique is so faulty that it cannot support your power output. So if you want to throw really far, we need to straighten that out so you can stabilize your power and put it into the ball. And I think eventually, because I think that's one of the things that really like changed her in her senior year, and the weight was just like she got better at turning and she was able to apply all the power that she had. And she liked that. I'm like, you'll be able to compete the way you want to compete if you get your technique better. So when we're at practice, we need to focus on that, you know? And so then that motivated her to practice better. You know, I think, you know, like I haven't learned as much about Divine as, you know, and I'm excited to learn more about how she operates, but she's very, you know, she wants to understand and be able to apply the technical concepts so that she understands it. So it's like all 4 of those girls kind of go at it very differently to get the same result. And I think as a coach, it's really important to know how your athletes tick and what's important to them. You know, like Joe is extremely extrinsically motivated. So like he has to have, like he says, carrots. So it's like if it's a meet that doesn't mean anything, you know, in terms of like, I'm not going to make the team, I'm a medal, whatever it is, his motivation is different at different types of times of the year, different places he's in, and he has to have an incentive to really get him to like lock in and get very, very focused to like to do what he has to do. So I think as a coach, like if you want to have like an X factor with your kids, you better understand them and really understand them, you know, so that when it comes down to it, you know what you need to do or say or what they need to do to get them to the next level or get them to be able to compete.
It's crucial. You can't go other way around it if you want to get the best out of the person, right?
Right.
You have to know your athlete, how they perform. You mentioned the process, right? Well, one of your athletes loves the process. One of the athletes wants to compete, right? So getting to know, knowing that fact will help you help them even more, right? And you obviously pay a lot of attention to that you are not putting the same mold towards every person, right? Even though they might be the same height, the same size, same strength, mentally you're going deep, right? Like you go like, what ticks you, right? What's your carrot, right?
You
I
have
love
to
that.
talk to
Carrots.
them
That's
differently.
awesome.
You know, like the things that I say to Adelaide, I would never ever say to Sade. The things I said to Nick Demline, I would never say to anybody else. You know, it's just, and if you can't do that, I don't think you're going to be as effective. And to be honest with you, like I truly, truly believe that part of the reason that I've had the success that I've had with the people I've had is because of that. You know, and I think a lot of that too boils down to, and that's why, like I said, with Divine and Lindsay, I don't know them as well as I know Adelaide and Sade just because they haven't been here as long. But, you know, for me, it boils down to trust, communication, and respect are like the pillars of every relationship, like any relationship, like a friendship, your relationship with your boss, your relationship with your athletes, your relationship with a significant other. And it's like you build those pillars and then you're able to really learn that person, trust them, communicate appropriately with them. And that's when everybody is at their best. Even me. The more you understand me as your coach, the more you understand the way I communicate and what is important to me and what makes me tick, the better I am at helping teach you what makes you tick or understanding what makes you tick, you know? And I think that that's super, super, super important is the ability to have those communication skills with your athletes, you know? And that's another thing that boils back down to recruiting, Martin. You know, like I've had kids that had not thrown that far, that I really had a good vibe with, that I was like, you know, I needed that kid in my program. You know, we just got a girl from Ohio that's coming here, and she'd thrown pretty well, but, you know, kind of like on our like lower standards for like the people we have in. But I think she's a great athlete and has like an awesome personality. And I introduced her to the head coach and I said, like, this is somebody I think can be really, really good. And I really like her a lot. And I wanted her bad. I might have wanted her as bad as somebody that thrown, you know, 8 feet farther than she had, because I truly believe that we're going to have a good vibe and like we're going to be able to bring out the best in each other, and she's going to have a good career here. You know, so that it all kind of like, to me, it all connects. And I think in the recruiting process, you know, it is a lot more, like you said, than just the numbers. It's like, are we going to get along well? Are we going to have a good vibe? Somebody might not want the type of energy that I have, that I bring. They might want somebody that's a little bit more, you know, laid back or handles things a little bit differently. You know, I've never been accused of being a laid back coach and or a laid back person in general. So if you're somebody that needs that, I'm not going to be that for you, you know, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay.
And I think that's why your athletes like you so much. You know, girls and guys, you click with them same way. I remember at meets, they're coming up to you, you know, and you have all these things that you tell them, like, okay, remember what we did? Like, you have very specific directions for them. This is why you did it. You have to adjust this, and you have this energy, and you're walking around checking it, and they can rely on that. They know that Coach Kovacs, you know, Ashley's looking after me. She's going to give me a good advice. I'm going to go back to her. They don't come to you. There's a difference that I see. Sometimes athletes like look at you and like, oh, please help me, right? Like I'm drowning, right? They look at you. Your athletes are confident. They're like, oh, I screwed up, but okay, what can I do? Like they don't have that fear. You know, sometimes you see the difference, and I think because of that, because of the relationship you have, because you're so detailed and so involved with them, and you cannot fake that. That is, you cannot fake caring for your athletes for a long time, right? Like they will figure out that real quick after those 6 weeks. Like, oh, this coach is kind of like on the phone. They're like all over the place.
Yeah.
But you have them like the whole time, year, 2, 3, 4. And when they trust you that much, they know that you are giving everything of your knowledge and your time and everything else, right? All the research that you have, put it into them. They're so much more confident, and you will get best out of them. And that's what I see at the meets. Your athletes are so excited to throw, and even when they don't throw far, they're like, okay, next time I'll do better. I love that about your culture that you're building. So it comes obviously from you. It's so important for a coach to have that, to set that example for athletes. And I like that you're saying, like, if you're not that kind of athlete, this is not a place for you. I will get the best out of it. I will be on you. I will make sure that you're doing your best. If that's not what you're looking for. I mean,
I don't think that, I don't think everywhere is the best fit for everyone. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's the thing. Like, I think people, and I had this experience, like, I thought I knew exactly where I wanted to go. I went on a bunch of visits, and I went to Ashland at first for a semester. And then I ended up transferring to Kentucky just because I wanted to go to a bigger school. But, I liked Ashland's culture. That was the best at that time. That was the best fit for me. And I think that it's important for athletes and, like student athletes and recruits to like really ask themselves, is this somebody that I see myself with every day talking to? And if things get rough, even anything, like, what if something happens personal to you that you need to like confide in this person? Do you feel comfortable doing that? Like, I had a girl recently, and she was like, she was going to go somewhere else because it was a bigger offer. It was a smaller school, a bigger offer. And I understood. And I said to her, I was like, look, I understand the financial side of it. That you're going to pay less money to go there. I understand. I really wanted to have you. I wish you the best. Good luck. And she called me back a couple of days later, and she said that, the coach from the other school called her, and she just watched the phone ring and didn't answer it. And then she called me, and I was like, well, if you are going to watch the phone ring when he calls you, and then you're going to call me, like, that should be a kind of like a context clue for you. Like that's not like what you're really feeling. You'd rather, like, maybe you feel like we have a better connection or whatever it is. I was like, you need to pay attention to that. So it's like, you might think you want to go to Ohio State, but then you go to Virginia and you have a better vibe with Martin. It's like, then you should go to Virginia. And it might upset me at the time, and I'm like, oh man, I lost one to Martin. But at the same time, like, it's about what the best fit is for you. And if it's the best fit for you, it's probably going to be the best fit for the coach too. And then you're going to get the best out of the coach. So I think that it's really important to make sure you have people around you that you're going to vibe with, because if not, you guys are just going to be bumping heads, and it's not going to be good for anybody.
You can earn more money. You can build another house. If you lose a house, you can buy a new car, make money for a car. You cannot take time away. You cannot make more time. There's just time that you have. And if you're not spending this precious, there's no price you can put it on, right? This is your life. You're spending all this time with someone that you don't like, or you're not clicking. That's such a waste of life, right? Like, you're wasting a life, opportunities that you could have had, good times that you could have. Not just, like you said, you have fun on practice and then you work hard as well, right? Like, you're building yourself a legacy for your life. You're building yourself up. That is no price to put on that. That always, I say to you, same way to our athletes that I recruit. Like, hey, I don't want you here if you're not happy here. Like, there's no money, there's no nothing. Like, I want you to be happy first. I understand, same thing. Sometimes we don't have scholarships, right? But if you don't think this is the place for you to be right now, and you feel somewhere else is the place, and I know that coach also is a good coach, right? It's a good school, it's a good fit. I'm not going to feel bad, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, one example, one of the athletes that went to Tennessee, I was happy for her. Like, I would love to have her here. She's an amazing athlete, but she went there. I knew John's going to take care of her, and I knew that group is good. So it was fine, right? It was fine, and that's when you truly care about, as you do, for your athletes. I know that you're not going to be heartbroken. You're going to be happy if that athlete's going to a good place, right? Even though, the money or whatever difference, they're going to be taken care of. And that's the point of the whole sport. Track and field is a small part. If we are not doing everything that we can to raise this sport up as a culture, right? It's like CrossFit. People love CrossFit. Right? There's no Olympics in CrossFit, but millions of people, I think, because they have that group, they have the community, they're training together, they're building up, they're going to log in, they're going to look for more, crazy exercises to do.
Right.
and the sport is going up. I think that's so crucial what you're doing for our sport. And people ask me, one of the parents asked me to ask you, what can we do to make this sport better? The shot put is not on the screens, right? The track and field, it's itself is not dying, but throwing, it's not being shown on TV. What can we do to make it the better?
Well, I think that, this is something I've thought about more recently, just, from Joe. And I think that, like you said, like the CrossFit thing, I think that it's becoming more like acceptable, cool to be like a strong person, even a strong woman. Like when I was in high school, no one lifted, no girls really lifted besides me. I mean, some of the basketball team might go in there and do some light stuff, but like nobody was doing like a hardcore training program, And I remember when I got to college, it was like the first time I was like, oh my gosh, there's other girls that like do this. And I loved that, and I think that things like that are really going to help our sport. I think that, the more people that we can get to pay attention to what's going on, for example, like what happened at Worlds last year was a huge deal. And I think that the people in the throwing community realized that it was, but I just think that there probably could have been a better job done of putting it into perspective of what happened. You had 3 guys within 1 centimeter of each other. And like the way that I explain that is like, imagine I've been to probably, same as you, Martin, probably hundreds of track meets at this point in my life, like from middle school all the way until like my present day. I can't think of one time that I was even at a dual meet, at a middle school meet on a Thursday night where there were 3 people separated by a centimeter, even if they were like last, second to last, and third to last. Like that never happens. Even if people are like, a tie is rare. People being 1 centimeter apart is rare. 3 people being 1 centimeter apart at the highest level. I mean, and to think too that those were the farthest throws in the last 30 years. It's like, how can we put that into better perspective that people can understand? And like, I think that that's what it's going to have to take. I think we're going to have to be able to put it into perspective a little bit better of what these guys are actually doing to make it, to explain how unique and like impressive it actually is.
I have not seen a movie, or there's a documentary about Michael Jordan now, and he's incredible. What happened in Doha? I'm a big basketball fan too. I watch NBA. Tony Kukoc, Croatian guy playing for Bulls, right? I would get up at 4 a.m. to watch the games. I was never as excited, and it's really, and I was just, it was amazing to see that competition from the beginning, opening up at 22:90, and then you got Krauser missing on the side, and this. It's just for Joe to finally, he's world champion twice now, right? But to finally this year to kind of get it into that throw, and he has done it on practice. I remember here at UVA when you guys came over, and you were like, Martin, like tell him how far you throw in warm up. I'm like, it was over 23, 30. This is the 24 mark. Like Joe, like see, you're gonna do it, and then he finally does it, right? And then he's jumping around. I'm like, this is insane. I'm jumping in my office. How exciting was that for you too? Like, you knew he can throw far. You knew, and you were telling him like, yeah, you're gonna throw 23, right? How exciting was for you to see that to fruition at that level?
Just like, it's still crazy to think about. Like it's still. I feel like it's one of those things that we really. It's going to be like what you said about the girls, and they'll realize how special this was later. Like this is probably going to be something that. It's going to just, it's going to be like a fine wine type situation. It's just over time, we're going to see, it's just going to get better and better. But the thing for me was, I think there was a point where he kind of gave up on himself a little bit. And I just think that it was a lot of different things. He's been doing it for a while. I think he was just kind of like lost there were other things that he was interested in. Like he became a pilot, he went down to Florida and like, he was a pilot, he became a pilot. So it was like, he liked to do that. We have a house. He likes the yard. We planned our wedding. Like there were all these things that we were doing that he was like interested in doing these projects. And I think that he just kind of was like not into it. And then he got back into it. He was trying some different things and it just wasn't clicking. And he just was like kind of like over it a little bit. He was just frustrated. And then it became a thing where it's like, well, maybe, I think he was like, well, maybe I'll be done. And then he didn't really want to be done. And it was like, well, if you don't want to be done, then we need to just really do it right. And just give it a chance, at least through, 2020 and see. And then he really started liking it again. Like he said, like, I like really was enjoying it. Like we had a good, it's like you asked about our schedule. It was like, I would have practice with the Ohio State people. He would come later. He'd watch some of their practice. He'd get ready. And sometimes like, he throws with the group. Sometimes he'll throw with a couple of the guys. I kind of like hand pick a group that he likes to train with or whatever. Sometimes he'll throw with the guys, whatever it is. And he started really enjoying like what we were doing. And it was also cool. Like, like we went to your meet at UVA and it was like, I went to the meet with Ohio State. He flew in a couple of days later and he knows my group and it was comfortable and it was cool. And like, he was enjoying that, so, but it wasn't easy. Like, like you said, at UVA Challenge, that was his first meet of 2019. And he was warming up like out of control. Like I couldn't really, when he throws sometimes so far over like the last line, I don't really know how far he's throwing, but I knew it was far. Like I knew it was over 22 meters for sure. I knew it was, everyone knew, like they were bouncing and rolling onto the track, and that's why I said to you, Martin, now like you were out there and I was like, give me some sort of, and you had the tape out there. And he's always like, oh, seeing far warm up is nothing new to me. It doesn't count. So he's thrown far. First round, he fouls, and then he just completely backed down and just like shut it down, basically. So it's like and that's the thing we said, like, okay, if you were throwing that far in warm-ups, you're capable of throwing that far right now. You're capable of doing that. Now we just need to clean it up and do it in the ring. Like that's it. Like it's there. It's clearly there. So we knew it was there. Like you said, like I knew it was there. Other people had seen it. Like, so after UVA, Martin, he went to Doha and for the first Diamond League. And who was it? Somebody was telling me, I think, Degata told me. Degata was like, I've never seen anybody warm up as far as I was seeing Joe warm up in Doha. And I was like, really? And he's like, yes. And then somebody had measured one and it was almost 23 meters. And they told him about it or whatever. And, of course, he doesn't give that much. Okay, whatever. I had a far warm up. I didn't win the meet. I didn't throw that far at the meet, whatever. So we knew he was capable and he was so strong. He was like stronger than he'd ever been. And we just kept like chipping away at it, and it was like every day chipping away. And throughout the whole thing, I started to learn more. Like, we talked about, like, it was only the second year that he lived in Columbus, the second year that I'd seen him throw every day. So I was still learning him, in that way. And so as it went on and I'm trying to learn more about what makes him tick, what he needs to do, these types of things, what does he need to feel comfortable? What makes him feel comfortable? Like, okay, like say he'd have a big throw and then I have to think to myself, what led up to that? Like, what was his vibe like? What was going on that led up to that? And then just, getting more comfortable with each other in that way, in that environment, and in Doha, like, well, he did really well at USA's, which were, I mean, you want to talk about my resting heart rate was like 170. Like I was seriously like, that was the worst ever. Because like I didn't know what he was gonna do. Like he hadn't thrown that far in the year. He'd thrown like 21 mid, I think. And there were a lot of guys capable. And I'm like, I was coaching that team. I was the men's coach for USA. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to Doha. You know what I mean? Like,
is he going?
And that was the thing. Like we couldn't even talk about it. We didn't even talk about it, and it was just like, but he'd been training really well, but he didn't care that he trains real well. So it's like, I don't know. First throws over 22. And I'm just like, that, I swear it just felt like somebody just like lifted a off of my body in that moment, but in Doha, like we really thought he could PR. And that was the whole thing. That was the whole thing the whole time. When we were in Doha, he had like a few practices where he just he was throwing so far. But again, nothing we hadn't seen before, whatever. And in round 6, like he was throwing like 21 high and he was 4th. And I just said to him, I'm like, like these are nice throws, but they're not helping. Like nothing except for your PR is helping you right now. That's it. Like it's either like you throw a PR or you foul the throw. Another 2190 is pretty, but you're not gonna get a medal. It's not gonna make anything any better. So it's like either like foul far throw or get a far throw that stays in the ring.
Yeah.
Either way, like you have to make it go. And now it's like you have nothing to lose. And I think that was the first time in a long time he actually felt like, yeah, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. Like I'll get fourth. It'll be a good showing, or I can try to do something crazy. And he just was like, he just flipped the switch. Yeah. And that's exactly to me how it went. You know, he flipped the switch, and it was just like, it wasn't like I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe he's capable.
He threw it. Yeah, he can do it. He can do it.
Yeah. We knew he could do it. Now, was I surprised he did it that way in that moment? I'm not going to say I wasn't. You know, I was. You know, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Talk about fairy tales. Like if you wrote that, and people talk about this so many times. If you wrote that in a script, you will be like, "This is so far fetched. Yeah. This is so far fetched. This is not, the people are not going to believe this. This is a terrible story." And it happens in front of your eyes. I cannot even imagine how it was to be around so many people, 80,000, whatever, how many people was the stadium, and out of nowhere, like shot put is like the main event, like something's crazy happening. We were jumping here on TV. I can only imagine how you felt there to see your husband being a world champion in that way.
It was definitely intense. And like you said, like I didn't realize that like everyone was looking at us. You know, I didn't realize it until
the
like,
moment.
Yeah, I had no idea. But then I saw a video from somebody else that was like from the other side of the stadium. And like you could see everybody like looking at us, you know, when he came over to me. And I just like in the moment, I had no idea what was going on. Like I had no idea that people were paying attention or that the running event stopped or anything like that. Like it was just, you know, it was very like, you know, it's like anything else. Like, you know how it is, Martin, when you have an athlete and it's like, you know, it's crazy because that's my husband, you know, and so there's a lot there. There's a lot going on emotionally because, you know, you never want your athlete to do bad, but like you never want your spouse or your husband to be upset. And so for me, it's like, I don't want to see him upset. And that was like such a huge moment. It was just like so many things going on emotionally, you know, that the context and everything around me was so blurred. But yeah, it's really awesome. It's a really awesome memory, and it's definitely something that we'll definitely remember forever.
I don't think a person can get that high without drugs. I mean, being like weed or whatever. That's that moment, that ecstasy that I was watching in terms of track, right? And I can only imagine what you guys felt there, right? When that moment that this is all coming together, right? Like, this is like real. I'm not dreaming. It's not a dream, right? This is real life. Like that video of that kid, like, is this real life?
The dentist.
Is this happening? Like, am I on anesthesia? Amazing. I'm so happy for you to that it happened to you guys too. Obviously, those guys are amazing as well. Ryan and Tom Walsh. And Paul Dudland, right? He gets fourth with 22.
That was crazy. Yeah, he's awesome too. All those guys are just, and they all had such a great year too. Like they all are so good, you know, like they're all so good. Like, and if you even think about like 10 years ago, like you think about, like you said, Nelson and Cantwell and, you know, Reese and all those guys. And it's like, and you think about these guys now, and it's just like, it's just crazy, you know, to think about how it is. And like how, like, you know, like sometimes I ask Joe, I'm like, Joe loves Adam Nelson, you know, and he really, I mean, he's friends with Cantwell, and he really, you know, liked Reese. He has a lot of respect for all those guys. And like, I just like ask him, like, I just feel like he doesn't realize, like, people look at you the way that you looked at those guys. You know, the way you like idolized Adam Nelson. Like he loves Adam Nelson. I think he likes him for a lot of reasons. I think he likes that he's really intelligent. And then I think he likes that he did his own thing, his own way. And people, you know, criticized or, hey, if you didn't do this with your left leg or you did that differently. And he didn't care. Like he stuck to his guns. And I know he loved his intensity and the way he competed. But it's like, there are kids that see Joe that way, of course. How could they not, you know? And I don't think he gets that. And I think sometimes I might even like lose sight of that because you're in it, you know, and so you don't think about it that way. But, you know, those guys right now are all so good and they've done so much for the sport and for the shot put. And they've just, you know, and you look at Tom and Joe and it's like, they're not big. I mean, in terms of like, I mean, they're big for like a normal person, but like in terms of like thrower big, they're not like, oh, you pick them out of a lineup to be a thrower or whatever. And they're doing it at such a high level. It's like, it's changing the way everybody thinks about the way that it can be done.
and to go to exactly the point, to go back to that thing we talked about, how we can make this sport more attractive to other people, is it's so exciting to see you guys so humble. Joe is such an incredible guy. You're an incredible person. I think you're the strongest couple out there in track and field. It's just amazing how you get along. Not just that, but because you're so humble and nice people, and you are bringing this sport to everybody, right? So those kids that come up to Joe and you, right, that you are willing to talk to them, and you're more than willing to share your knowledge. It's something that stays in you for a long time. I remember even for myself, Jason Tanks, right? I'm still in college. This guy is, for me, like you say, those, like Joe looks at those guys, Nelson, right? I'm like, this is the, dinosaur. This is, high class guy. He's never going to talk to me. I sent him an email, I'm struggling with bench press. How do you have any advice? And he writes me back this long email. I'm like, oh my God, like, I love this sport, right? This is
awesome.
like a small thing like that can make
Right.
a big difference. And then you have it trickles down to around and the families. And this is how we make this sport more attractive to everybody. And to see that this sport makes you a better person. It makes you better in everything that you do, right? Now,
Right.
And I love in your relationship, like, you never gave up on Joe, not just because he's your husband, obviously, right now, but that you saw that and you keep drilling, like, no, you'll do it. And I love how he responded to that. How is that? How is being, wife to world champion, like, and being a coach, right?
Like,
How's that
I mean,
relationship?
the kids at Ohio State will tell you, like, it was not always easy. Like, there were some really, really tough days. I mean, the same as anybody else. The difference is, like, okay, not only the husband and wife deal, but the fact that, like, this is his livelihood. So, like, I get mad if my job isn't going well. A businessman would get mad if his job wasn't going well. Anybody doing any job is going to get frustrated if it's not going well. And you bring it home. Like, you bring that, like, you don't want to bring it home, but, like, if you have a bad day at work, you don't come home just, like, singing with the birds or whatever. Like, man, I had a long day. It was tough. And so it's like, when that was going on, when we were trying to still figure things out, it was tough, because he was frustrated with how he was doing. I was frustrated because I couldn't help him better, and the thing was, it was just like, I think a lot of it with Joe was, like, Joe felt like he had to have this certain, like, persona about himself to throw far. Like, he felt like he had to, like, be angry all the time. Like, he literally would say this. He's like, and I'm not angry, or, like, I'm not like that when I'm around you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, ready to just, like, like, punch somebody in the face.
Go through the wall, right? Go through the wall.
And it's like, okay. And I'm like, I don't know what part of me at practice is, like, like, radiating happiness, but, like, like, he, like, literally. So then we started, like, he would go somewhere beforehand. Like, he'd go get coffee, or he'd go get something to eat by himself. And, like, we've gotten away from that because we've learned how to do it. But it was like, he kept trying to, like, he was used to, when he was at the training center, kind of, like, making it like a show at practice, this, like, almost like this mini meet, this high energy, just, like, intensity. And, like, he talks about this all the time. Like, he's training with Ryan and Darrell, and then you come here and you're with, even if I have really good college kids, it's not the same energy. It's not the same show. You don't have, people from different countries coming in and watching you and oohing and eyeing. Like, it's just it's like a normal environment, and so he didn't know how to be that in that environment. Yeah. And so, I think that when he started kind of, like, learning how he needed to be and how he needed to train like that. So, like, the way he is now, like, and this is the thing I think people don't get, he doesn't throw far all the time. You know what I mean? If you come to Ohio State, like, on a random day, if he squatted 2 days ago, you're not going to see him throwing 23 meters. You're just not. He's not going to do that. And so he's, we've learned to pick and choose the days that we make intense. And when we have intense days, it's going to be an intense day. So I might tell the guys, like, hey, we're going to throw really hard on Thursday. So you got to bring good energy. Like, let's get going. We're going to, we're going to listen to music. We're going to like, have, like, a vibe practice. And so then I'll make that group just for Joe, and the guys love it. If you get picked to kind of be in that group, they love it and they go nuts for it, and it's just, we don't really talk. It's not a whole lot of this and that. It's like 2-word cues, do this, do that, keep it moving, keep it popping. And it's just intense. And he'll have one of those every couple of weeks when he's feeling it. And that's how we do it. But it took some time for us to kind of set up the way that we needed to do that. And I think that it's like anything else. When I learned what made him tick, and I'm still learning every day, but it's like I really try to pay attention, you know what I'm saying, to what he needs. And when I started to realize it, I just tried to make use my resources to help mold the things around what he needed. And we've been able to do that. And now it works out really, really well.
Really, really, really well, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm amazed, and I'm so happy to see that Joe took that leap of faith, right? So you're going from something that you know that works for you, or worked for you, and now you're kind of struggling, and then he took a leap of faith, basically, right? Well, not leap of faith. He knew that you know what you're talking about. Obviously, you're experienced, and he's coming into this environment that he hasn't been before, that doesn't work for him, but he's not giving up. He's like, okay, this is either going to be really amazing, or the worst case scenario, what? I'm still a world champion, right? So
Right.
I can only get better. But you don't see that many athletes at that level willing to listen to some cues or find different things that might work for them at that late, basically, right? Late in career.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive to see how you guys are reinventing them yourselves along this way. Like you say, you're still finding the cues that works for him. And that's just incredible to see. You would think 22.50, that was his max. He fouled out. All those guys, 22.50, that's the mark. But then you go on and do this, and then I think that's one very important lesson for life, that there's better things you can do. You got to switch it out. You can't just be, I reached my max. That's it. I'll lay down. That's it, right? So the fact that you did that together, that's amazing.
Yeah, and like you said, like I know there was a point, because I remember this conversation where he told me, like before Worlds, he told me like that he didn't know if he could ever PR again.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you think you're not physically capable of throwing that far? Yeah. And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, why not? And he's like, I'm not in that mindset. And that was it. He's like, I'm not in that mindset. Like, I just feel like that mindset's not in me, And so for me, and that's the thing I think that is just like, that
was not okay for you, right?
No. Well, I mean, for me, I wanted to understand it. I was like, well, I asked him, I'm like, are you not as strong as you were? No, I'm stronger. Well, like, why you're not as fast? No, I think I'm as fast. Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you think you can throw that far? And then the reason he thought that is because he thought he wasn't in the frame of mind mentally to do it. And so for me, it's like, well, what needs to happen? You know what I'm saying? And I asked him, like, when you throw really well or really far, like, what goes on? What do you feel? What gives you confidence? And like, it could be anything. It's like, well, when my stand throw's on, I feel on. When this is, when my bench press is big, when this, when that, when I have a lot of good training throws in a row, everyone's different. And it's the same thing with the college kids. It's like, what makes Sade feel confident that she's going to win NCAAs? What makes Adelaide feel confident that she can throw 14 meters in the first 3 rounds of Big Tens and then throw 1780 and win? Like, what needs to happen behind the scenes in the lab that when you go out in front of the lights, that you have what it takes to be your best at that moment? And I think that, like, I didn't teach Joe how to throw the shot put. Joe knows how to throw the shot put. That wasn't me. It really wasn't. I think that I helped him realize what he needed from himself. And I think we had a lot of conversations about those types of things. And I think that we structured our training to help him feel more confident and like build some padding around the things that make him feel good. And I think that that's what it has to be. Everybody that throws well, it's like when you step into the ring, if you ask, like, were you scared when you stepped in the ring, you threw your PR? No one's going to say, yeah, I was scared. Like, you either get to a point where you're just like, I can't wait to take this throw, or just like, I don't even care what happens. I'm just going to go for it. And it's like, what can we do in training to put you in a place where you are going to be daring on every throw because you trust yourself, and like we were watching some documentary, and it was like this astronaut, and he said, the more you know, the less you fear. He was talking about the more you know about like the spaceship and all these little things, the less you have to be scared about because you get it. And that's how I feel about like training. It's like, well, if you can't get out of the back, but you know what you have to do to get out of the back, then you can fix it. If you have no idea how you do it when you do it well, then it's done. You're done for. So I think that as a coach, it's our job to know the roadmap for all of our athletes. And I don't think they're different. I don't think they're the same for everybody. I think they're all different.
amazing to hear that. And I'm always happy to when I'm talking to coaches like you or athletes who are in it like yourself and like Joe, when you're so into this, you will do everything that you can in possible, and you will not let that other person think otherwise, because you know you have experience, you wanted this to happen, and you will go to length. And I remember Joe saying, you know, I had to stop, you know, and start listening, right? I had to stop and open my ears to what Ashley was telling me, because, you know, she saw this, and I finally give in. Like, okay, let's do this. And then boom, right? So, but that's it comes from your tenaciousness, because you're so like, you know, I see this, like, it's like, you know, whatever talents your kid has, and then they'll believe them, even if it's your own child, right? I say, I don't know how to, you know, I'm not a father, but I know, like, my mom, when she was so believing in me, and when you see that belief in the person who cares so much about you, and they know you so well, and you're
Right.
like, I think they're right, you know, like, I think they're right, let me do it, and then you do it, right? You would not give them you would not tell them something that you don't think is true, right?
Right.
So, yeah. You will not just like, yeah, you will do it just to motivate you, like that.
Right.
That's a short road to go, right?
Yeah, I
And
think that's really important too, Martin. You know, I think I even say this to recruits, like there are some coaches I think that, you know, like say you're throwing 17 meters and your coach is gonna be like, oh man, you were throwing like 1730, 1750. If
yeah,
you're throwing 17, like first of all, like we measure our training throws just because I want them to have an idea of the reality of what's going on every day.
mhm,
But like I think the biggest disservice you can do to an athlete or really anybody is to fabricate what they're actually doing,
yes,
because then they're going to go to a meet and then they're going to be like, well, you said I was throwing this or I was throwing this and that or this in practice. And it's like, but if we weren't telling them the truth, like the tape measure is not going to lie to them, you know? And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I think it's the same thing. And even with Joe, it's like sometimes, like there was a point where he was like, it was just not good. And it was just like, in my head, I was like thinking about Nick Demoline's training or JC's training. And I'm like, it wasn't really that much more impressive to me than anything that those guys were doing at their
mhm,
best. And I was just like, it's got to get better. Like this is not good enough for how good you are, you know? And I think that being realistic gives them confidence, like, because they know then when I say it's good, I mean it, you
yeah,
know? And I'm going to say when it's bad, I'm going to let you know that too. So,
yeah,
you know, I think that's really important. And I think that like I respected that as an athlete, if somebody was going to be honest with me. So that's just how I am. I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but like
mhm,
if something's real bad, I get it. Like you want them to have confidence, but the real confidence, true confidence, not fake
mhm,
confidence, you know, not confidence built on lie and
yeah,
fabrication.
yeah,
So I just don't do that
yeah.
ever.
And then long term, that's how you can. That's the only way you can be really successful a long time, is to tell the athlete the truth. If you have a problem and you don't address it in a truthful way, how are you going to find a solution? Because
Right.
there's something that you're not telling this person, or it's wrong with this person, or athlete, like technically or physically, whatever it is, like they're not strong, like you telling them, not truth, it's going to come out to the surface,
Yeah. And then
and they're
you're
going to lose
lying
trust.
to them. Right. And then they're not going to trust you because you weren't honest.
Yeah,
And that's what I said. Like, that's why it goes back to the trust,
yeah,
communication, respect pillars for me. Like, you aren't going to trust me if I'm lying to you, if I'm lying to make you feel better. That's not in your best interest long term.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that, and that's why long term, obviously, and like I said, you have such a great relationship with your athletes, and I see how they respect you when they come to you at the meets, and after they graduate, they'll swear by you, right? To being a great coach and great person to make them feel better, not not just to make them feel better in the moment, but to make them better person. So even if it takes in a moment being honest, like, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, these habits you have to change, we have to do this if you want to get it. So people in long time appreciate that, and that's how you make great things, right?
Thank you.
So in terms of now, to go back in recruiting, I just have one more question for you. I don't want to take too much of your time. When you do, obviously you want to have that good relationship in the communication from the get-go, from your recruits and athletes and parents. What do you like to see in email? How do you like to athletes to approach you when they do send you email, or when they reach out to you?
Um, you know, I think that it's important for the athletes just to put themselves out there in terms of like, hey, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, these are my grades, because that's going to be like the first thing I'm going to ask. These are my marks, and like these are a few videos, and then a reason maybe why you would be interested in Ohio State. If you're like an Ohio kid, like, hey, I'm from Ohio, I've always loved Ohio State, my parents went to Ohio State, like whatever it is, like if you have some reason that you're interested in us, or even if it's like, hey, I've seen, I watched your throwers at Big Tens and I really like thought that they looked good in the ring or something. Anything like that that shows you're paying attention to us and to what we're doing, I think that's really cool. Like why are you emailing me? Like why Ohio State? Because that gives me an idea of like what are you motivated by with us? Yeah. I think that's important, and like I said, I think that for me the email communication and the electronic communication is just the first step. And then for me, it's going to boil down to like that, the vibe we have on the phone. If it's a good fit, if I think you're going to be a good fit in our program, if you're willing to work the way that we work here, and I think you're going to be on top of your game, and you're going to be somebody that's going to, like you said, Martin, like bring the bottom up. We talk about bring the bottom up all the time. You want to be somebody that's bringing the group up like this, not somebody that's sucking the group down like this. And I don't want you really to be here either. That doesn't really help me. Like I want more people doing this, so the whole thing comes up, and we talk about that all the time. So it's really easy for us to, I think, as coaches, to see pretty quickly if we think you're going to be somebody that's going to be pulling us like this or pulling us like this. Yeah. And that just boils down to being able to talk to you and get to know you on a more intimate level.
Do you like? I know a lot of coaches, high school coaches, and a lot of parents are afraid to reach out to coaches for whatever reason. They don't want to bother you. They don't want to think that they're picky. Do you like talking to parents? Do you encourage them to call you as well?
I don't like discourage anybody, from reaching out to me. Like I don't like protect myself that much. And like I know some coaches are like, don't talk to me. I don't feel that way at all. Like especially if I'm recruiting a kid and you're going to come do an official visit, I want to know your parents. Like if they don't reach out to me, I'll reach out to them at some point, and get to, and like at least speak to them. I like seeing the parents, like, and like one of my personal regrets when I did my official visits, and I don't actually, it's kind of like I'm on the fence with it. I didn't let my parents come with me on my official visits because I told them I didn't want to have a false sense of security with them being there. Like, because some of the places that I visited were far away, and like I went on a plane, obviously, to go to. I wanted to feel what it would feel like to be there without them. Okay. And part of me wishes I would have brought them so that they could have seen what I was seeing. But at the same time, I think that I would have made a different decision if they had been there, because I would have felt a little bit more comfortable just knowing that they were there. But like I remember going to South Carolina, and I really liked South Carolina. But I remember getting on the plane to go to South Carolina and like looking out the window and being like, if I ever had to get home, this is how I would have to do it. I couldn't drive home. And I think that meant something to me, because I wanted personally to be able to get home if I had to get home at the drop of a hat. So I was at Kentucky 5 hours away, and that wasn't easy. But, there were a couple family situations, like a grandparent passes or you just need to get home. And I wanted that. That was important to me. Some people are like, I want to get far away, and I just think that you have to really be honest. It all boils down to this: being honest with yourself about what you want, and I think the parents have to also like look and be like, what does my kid really want? And but as far as like the communication goes, I'm open to speak to anybody, and there are some people that, that are going to send emails, and it's just, hey, thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate your interest in Ohio State. Keep working hard, and these are our standards. Like, get back to me, keep me in touch with your progress, and we'll talk again when you're, a little bit closer to our standards. And that's not, a rude thing. That's just there is a, Martin, like there's a level that like you have to be at before it's even going to make sense, and so, and that's not to be disrespectful or rude to anybody, but, and there are different levels for different people.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have so many slots, right? Like you can't have 80 shot putters, right?
No,
so you can work only with such a small group. So it's not, like I said, disrespectful. It's just the way it is. So I like that you also encouraging parents to, come on a visit as well. So whatever can make that athlete feel not just more comfortable, but you get to know them through their parents as well, right? They're going to tell you about their kids. some things that the kid might not, tell you in terms of like, okay, he prefers a smaller group or he loves being in a big group, right? But he won't tell you because he's afraid or she's afraid that you're going to think different ways, right? So some small things like that can help a lot. What's the best way to reach you or easiest way to reach you in terms of recruiting the first?
I think email is probably like the first best way. And then once we email back and forth, like usually if we email back and forth a little bit, I have my cell phones on my my footer, my signature for my email. And then, hey, text me so I have your number and I'll give you a call, set up a call, we can communicate that way. That's usually how I've done things. Like I sometimes will try to get in touch with people on Instagram, but that's not usually like I might find somebody on Instagram if I'm looking for somebody and want to get their contact information. Hey, it's Coach Kovacs at Ohio State. Have you found a school? And if you have, hey, good luck to you. If you haven't, if we're interested, would you mind sending me your contact information? So yeah, that's usually, I'm pretty accessible. I think I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. So, I'm definitely open. We always are looking for, strong talent. This is a great school and it's a great conference, and we're really proud of our product, and we're always looking for good Buckeyes. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, excited. Like I told this to Miriam the other day. It's the same way. If I had, if God blesses me and my wife with kids, I will be more than comfortable with them going to your school if we don't have a scholarship or they don't want to do, I don't want to train with that, right? So thank you very much for sharing that, your knowledge and your experience. You're a very successful coach, obviously, and
thanks, Martin.
there's so many exciting things ahead of you guys and you and Joe and your team, which is incredible. But
Thanks,
you're doing
Martin.
incredible jobs. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Take care.